Can we observe evolution? Hi, it's Calvin Smith here, and welcome to Creation Basics, where our goal is to make God's creation part of your everyday conversation. Today's question is, can we observe evolution? You know, what seems weird to me is that I find the evolutionary community, it seems a bit schizophrenic sometimes. Let me give you some examples. Look at this bold claim from an evolutionary source. Actually, there is superabundant evidence for animals evolving under our eyes. British moths becoming darker since the Industrial Revolution. Insects evolving DDT resistance since World War II. Malaria parasites evolving chloroquine resistance in the last 2 decades. And new strains of flu virus evolving every few years to infect us. Wow, okay, no equivocation there. Apparently, we can observe evolution. But wait, here's a quote from probably the most famous atheist on the planet today, Professor Richard Dawkins, who's a staunch evolutionist. Look what he says. Evolution has been observed, it's just that it hasn't been observed while it's happening. What? That's Richard Dawkins. He's the author of many Amazon best-selling books championing evolution, and he's admitted evolution hasn't been observed. But evolutionists often claim, well, evolution is science and creation is faith. But when they say science is on their side, well, people naturally think about the type of science that's observable and it's repeatable and it's testable, etc. After all, isn't that what we were taught science was based on in school? Observation and testability? Now, by the way, Dawkins isn't alone here. Even his evolution-believing Christian counterparts admit the same thing. Here's a quote from the theistic evolutionary Biologos website's Q&A section answering why evolution can't be observed. Quote, "Many still wonder why macroevolutionary changes have never been observed. The simple answer is that we haven't been watching long enough. The types of genetic mutations that eventually lead to macroevolutionary changes are rare, and this accounts for the slow pace of evolutionary development." Now wait a second. Biologos is like an evolutionary think tank, and Dawkins is the former professor for public understanding of science at Oxford University. Wouldn't they know about the claims of the other evolutionists that say that they can see evolution happening all the time? What's going on here? Well, what this highlights is the difference between what your average true believer in evolution might understand and what the more informed evolutionists understand, and why they nuance what they say so that they don't overstep. You see, the examples of peppered moths and DDT resistance and new flu strains are the result of natural selection, which isn't evolution. Why? Because it doesn't create new genetic information for brand new forms, functions, and features in creatures, which is what evolution requires. All natural selection does is rearrange and cull information. It isn't a creative force. I mean, think about it. Peppered moths turning into peppered moths isn't exactly hands-down argument that particles turned into, prawns and parrots and pandas and people over millions of years in the unobserved past. Let me quote another evolutionist, L. Harrison Matthews, who wrote the introduction to Darwin's 1971 edition of Origin of Species, talking about the peppered moth. Quote, "The experiments beautifully demonstrate natural selection, or survival of the fittest, in action, but they do not show evolution in progress. For however the populations may alter in their content of light, intermediate, or dark forms, all the moths remain from beginning to end Biston Betularia." So, why you see this equivocation here is because they're trying to use words like evolution, natural selection, and change over time to mean the same thing, but they're not. It's called a bait and switch. We see changes in living things all the time, but not the type of change that could turn a lizard-like creature into a bird, for example. We just see variations of the same kind of creature, often because of defects like genetic mutations. Now, supposedly, mutations in DNA are supposed to create the brand new genetic information to create new structures that would evolve things. But think it through. If evolution hasn't been observed, as Dawkins admits, then logically, these mutations mustn't have been observed either. As Biologos puts it, quote, The types of genetic mutations that eventually lead to macroevolutionary changes are rare, and this accounts for the slow pace of evolutionary development. So, can we observe evolution? No. We can observe natural selection, but that's not evolution. If you believe in evolution, you do so because of faith, not direct observation. Hey folks, Calvin here. I know you've heard it all before. Subscribe, hit the buttons, all that stuff. But here's the thing. Think of it as if you're donating to our Answers in Genesis Canada advertising campaign without having to spend a dime. With the algorithms set up the way they are, it's kind of like getting media platforms that are often quite unfriendly to Christian content to promote gospel outreach for free. Wise as serpents, gentle as doves. So subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, share the content, click the button. I know it's annoying, but it really helps.